Good morning. I must confess that I have never in my life seen so much pink at a memorial service. And to tell you the truth, I don't know that I ever will again. What a wonderful tribute to this magnificent lady. I know that Martha would be overwhelmed to stand up here and to look out upon this sea of friends and loved ones come to mourn her. Last Friday, after Martha's condition took a downturn, I met with Rhett and Woody, and I asked if there were anything I could do to help. In fact, Rhett said, Martha talked for a long time about her wishes for her memorial service, and she's made a very special request of you. She wanted me to ask if you would speak about her career. I asked why I had been chosen for such a distinct honor, and Rhett and Woody explained that Martha said there were two big reasons. First, we had worked together at the Charleston County Public Defender's Office. And second, I was a Marine. You see, like many children of former Marines, Martha always loved the Corps. She was immensely proud of her father, Lieutenant Colonel Bill Dicus, a member of the greatest generation who enlisted in the Marine Corps the day after Pearl Harbor was attacked. Knowing Martha, it is not surprising that her father, as a 20-year-old private first class, was a member of the famed 1st Marine Division and in the first wave of Marines to hit the beach at Guadalcanal. Later, he received the Bronze Star for his valor at the Battle of Cape Gloucester, where he manned an armored half-track and charged across a river in a point-blank frontal assault on the Japanese lines to rescue a group of Marines who had been pinned down. Rhett added, "Oh, and one more thing. Martha always thought you were funny." Of course, I agreed to speak, and I asked if there were any specific instructions. Rhett said, well, yes. Martha said to make sure there is plenty of crying. So, that's the truth, isn't it, Rhett? I'm not making that up. So here I stand as a dutiful Marine with all humility and slightly more than casual trepidation, trying to carry out Ms. Dicus's final orders to the best of my ability. I think that all of us would find it an easy task to remember the first time we ever met Martha. She always seemed to leave an indelible first impression on people. In my case, it was the spring of 1994. I was finishing my active duty service as a fighter pilot at the air station in Beaufort and preparing to return home to Charleston to begin the practice of law. I received a telephone call one morning from my law school friend and Beaufort attorney, Carew Rice, asking if I might be able to give him and 3 other lawyers a tour of the F-18 simulator. A few days later, I met my guests at the front gate and escorted them to the simulator building. This particular simulator is a working replica of an F-18 cockpit, a $20 million video game that makes it appear that you're flying at night in exacting detail, even down to the headlights of the cars driving down Highway 21. As the only lady among us, Martha went first. We had just 1 hour available, so I gave her a very cursory brief. Martha asked, "How do I fly it?" "It's easy," I said. "When you pull back on the stick, the houses get smaller. When you push forward on the stick, the houses get bigger." Before we began, I selected the crash override feature so that the video screen would not freeze in the event of a simulated mishap. As it turned out, it was a good thing that I did. Martha was an amazing lawyer, but she was no Amelia Earhart. A short while into her flight, she exclaimed, "This is so much fun. How am I doing?" "Great," I replied, "but for the last 3 minutes, you've been flying 200 feet underground." Martha loved the experience, and years later, she still loved telling the story and laughing about her lack of aeronautical skill. As we said goodbye in typical Martha fashion, she reached in her car and presented me with a plate full of fresh-baked chocolate chip cookies and a thank you note written in blue highlighter. It would be the first of many such notes that she would send me over the years, including the traditional Marine Corps birthday card each November 10th. You could set your watch by it. I was not alone, of course, not by a long shot. Martha was a prolific writer. Rhett maintains that she probably sent and received more mail than anyone on the planet. Often, her cards arrived with no return address. But then again, a return address was really unnecessary. With one glance at the stickers on the envelope and your name and address scrawled in pink, there could be little doubt as to who had written. Marthagrams were the proverbial Forrest Gump box of chocolates. You never knew what you were going to get. On some occasions, they might indeed contain chocolate or some other candy. On others, there might be small toys for your children or a newspaper clipping that she thought you would find interesting. Martha's 17-year stint at the Charleston County PD's office was but one chapter in a lifetime devoted to serving the underprivileged. After graduating Meredith College in 1971, she worked in Raleigh as a social worker. Several years later, Martha decided to become a lawyer because she believed that it would provide her with greater opportunities for service. Martha boldly enrolled in the University of South Carolina School of Law at a time when the legal profession was dominated by men, and she was one of only a few women in her class. Fellow attorney George Coffin wrote that there never was any doubt with Martha. She went to law school not to make a fortune, but to learn skills to aid the unfortunate in their legal problems. She never strayed from that goal. Following graduation in 1977, Martha began to practice the law in the Richland County Public Defender's Office. After 5 years there, and ever the adventurer, she headed west in 1982 to Fort Washakie Reservation in Wyoming's Wind River Mountains, where she worked with Native American clients. Martha loved them and her experience in Wyoming, but in 1984 returned to her beloved South Carolina, where she said that she felt a greater connection to her southern roots. In her more than 3 decades of practice, Martha served as either a legal aid attorney or public defender in 10 South Carolina counties. One of her favorite assignments came in 1987 when she was named the managing attorney of the Neighborhood Legal Assistance Project on St. Helena Island. Martha provided counsel to the native Gullah community of the Sea Islands and worked out of a tiny office in the Penn Center where the Reverend Martin Luther King Jr. once slept. She described it as, quote, the greatest legal aid job in the world. During her time there, she also ran the public defender's office in Beaufort. In 1994, Martha moved to Connecticut and worked for a year advocating public interest law careers at Yale Law School. Much to our great fortune, in 1995, Martha returned to South Carolina and the Charleston County Public Defender's Office. I remember when our boss, Ninth Circuit Public Defender Ashley Pennington, informed the staff that he'd hired Martha. Ashley told us that he had known her for years and that she was a wonderful person and lawyer. Then he smiled and declared, "Martha is a real force of nature." Rhett would later say, "I didn't know what he meant at the time." Perhaps not, but we all got a rapid education. Martha was a force of nature, all right, but not like an earthquake or tsunami. She was more reserved, like the rising tide in a salt marsh creek. Slow, steady, unrelenting. To be sure, if there were an obstacle in her path and the circumstances dictated, she was like her father and unafraid to conduct a frontal assault. However, like the tide, she typically worked around the obstruction in a less confrontational way, gradually wearing it down until she prevailed. Martha's preferred approach was no less effective in achieving her desired goal. Witness the quiet, constant trickle of water that eventually produced the Grand Canyon. Although she would vehemently deny it and scoff at the notion, the truth is that Martha wielded a considerable degree of influence. She was neither powerful nor influential in the conventional sense. She was not a well-known politician, nor did she have an impressive title nor vast financial resources. However, people of more conventional power and influence listened and responded to her for the same reasons that everyone else did. The basis of Martha's influence was the utter respect that everyone had for her sterling character and steadfast commitment to her ideals. Never did she use this influence conspicuously, indiscriminately, or for personal gain, but always for the benefit of others. As our colleague Frank McCann observed, it was as natural for Martha to do good for others as it was for her to draw breath. Martha was the queen of what you see is what you get. She practically invented the concept. There was not a scintilla of pretense about her. She was absolutely and supremely comfortable in her own beautiful, wrinkle-free, retin A-bathed skin. I have never heard anyone speak ill of her. She had no enemies. So completely genuine to the core was she that one could not help but fall in love with her.